At 17, it was too young to get in after Pearl Harbor, but I waited until I could join.
Just turned 18 years old. I didn't want to get in no ditches, so I joined the Navy to see the world through a porthole.
And the recruiter told me, he said, if you enlist in the service, said they want men, mechanics at Tuskegee, Alabama, to take up airplane mechanics, and they're going to start an all-black Air Force up down there.
I took my basic training at Fort Leonard Wood. From there, I went to California, and I was there for 9 months, and then I got my orders to go to Vietnam. And I was there from July '67 to July '68.
I told you I grew 100 bushels of corn on an acre, one of the first ones at that time. And the very day that I picked the first load of that corn, I went by the mailbox and got this card that said, "Greetings."
Japan had China cut off by land and sea, and the only way in was by air. And nothing like this had ever been done before. It was 14,000 miles to India, and then you had to fly over the Himalaya Mountains to China, and thus it was nicknamed the Hump. Like I said, we lost 615 airplanes. It was labeled the toughest flying in the world, and there'll never be anything like it done again.
They got an army that could stretch around the world twice, hand in hand, they say, and I believe it. But man, we'd mow them down. They'd come out and line up like the old Civil War, and you think, well, we can't miss them. But they'd be so many, they'd overrun you, look up, and be right side of you.
May 4th of 1945, my ship was sunk in Okinawa. And we lost 155 of our men. And by the grace of God, I was on a hospital ship headed to Pearl Harbor again. And I found out later that my ship had been sunk off at Okinawa.
And it was so bitterly cold, I walked all night long to keep from freezing to death, because they told us if you ever quit moving when it's that cold, you're gonna die right there, frozen to death. And I did freeze my ears and my fingers. And firing over the top of us, I lost my hearing in my right ear.
And I was there during Tet of 1968, which was, they're saying that was the worst one during the whole Vietnam conflict.
One plane was on his tail, just about ready to take him out, and he dived down, and within 50 feet of the ground, he pulled out of this dive, and this jet was right on his tail. He managed to pull out, and the jet went right on in the ground, and that done him in. And when he come back in, I crawled underneath the plane, and they got a scoop over the radiator where it was, and I scraped gravel and wheat out of that scoop, because that propeller picked it up and threw it back in there. He said, "Ship, I can't believe it." And I said, "You're too close."
Just that I served as honorable as I could, and I did everything I could to try to bring the war to the close, and did my duty as I swore to do.
If you like what we did, you come up and thank us, and it'll make the hair stand up on our backs when you do, because we feel proud that that you're going to come up and thank us.
Makes me very proud, but I'm humble. I mean, I didn't go over to come back and try to be no hero or anything like that. I was just serving my country. That's the reason I went to the Air Force. I just wanted to do what was right.
Please stand for the posting of the colors and remain standing for the national anthem sung by Miss Alexa Mason and the Pledge of Allegiance led by FFA State President Miss Jalen Bergman.
Will you please join me in a salute to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, thank you. Please be seated. Please welcome, and didn't they do great? Well done to both of them. Please welcome Mr. Mark Wolf, Director of the Missouri State Fair.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for our third annual Military Appreciation Day at the Missouri State Fair today, and especially for coming together this afternoon. Joining me in hosting the Missouri State Fair is the Missouri State Fair Commission. They're located over in Section 114, and I ask that the Commission please stand and be recognized. Today's gathering honors not only the service of our outstanding servicemen and women, it is also one small way for us to say thank you for the many sacrifices each has made on our behalf. And while we have special events planned for you today, we are proud of our veterans and our men and women in uniform every day. And we are honored to host you here in Sedalia today. And we want you to know you are always welcome at the Missouri State Fair. Thank you.
Now please welcome Dr. Jon Hagler, Director of the Missouri Department of Agriculture.
Good afternoon. Missouri has a great tradition of supporting those who serve our country. And today's event is just one small way we can say thank you to the men and women who have dedicated their lives to the armed forces. Agriculture and service go hand in hand. Just 1.5% of the U.S. population lives on a farm or a ranch, but 40% of the men and women of the armed services come from rural communities. That speaks highly not only of the fabric of those communities, but also the character of those individuals. Today's ceremony is a celebration, a living tribute to the men and women of our armed services and the impact they have had on our nation and our state's history. We honor those with us today and those that have come before us, those prepared to answer the call of duty, and those whose service continued until the heavenly clarion sounded. How fitting it is that this, our 110th State Fair, is themed Celebrate Then and Wow. For the men and women of our armed services have certainly wowed us then and continue to do so now. Let me end with a passage from the good book in Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. For those of us in agriculture who know something about reaping a harvest, today we salute your service, your strength, your sacrifice. And we thank the Almighty that you, our defenders of freedom, our bulwark against complacency, have never and will never give up. Thank you.
We'd like to thank VFW Commander Phil Pippins and American Legion Commander Arthur Wilson for being here today. Please stand and be acknowledged. And for all that you do for veterans. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Colonel Retired Len Nevels. Colonel Nevels is a member of Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated, a group whose mission is to honor the accomplishments and perpetuate the history of African Americans who participated in air crew, ground crew, and operations support training in the Army Air Corps during World War II. Colonel Len Nevels enlisted in the United States Air Force, beginning his career maintaining and preparing electronic warfare devices used to protect B-2 bomber aircraft from enemy detection. This quiet young man from Savannah, Georgia, would go on to serve his country, always at the ready to deploy anywhere in the world on short notice. His last duty assignment was mobilization assistant to the Director, Command, Control, Communications, and Computer Systems, Headquarters, U.S. Pacific Command. He retired at the rank of colonel with 31 years of service to his country. Please welcome Colonel Retired Len Nevels.
Then, and wow, what a pleasure it is to be here on behalf of Tuskegee Airmen everywhere. I stand here to simply say thank you for allowing us to be part of something so very special. Today in the audience, we have members from the Heart of America chapter in Kansas City. There's also a chapter in St. Louis. We just want you to know that we care about this country, this nation, and those who have served, continue to serve, and the Tuskegee Airmen are proud to be a part of that fabric of America. Having had the opportunity to live and work all over the world, I can tell you there's no place else I would rather be. I am fortunate enough to follow in the footsteps of men like Mr. James Shepard, a crew chief from World War II. The Tuskegee Airmen stood up, raised their hands, and represented this country, this nation, to make sure that we all can live in a land where we know we are free. We are so thankful to be a part of this. This is such an awesome and inspiring environment to be in today that I'm honored to be here. But I want to tell you that the Tuskegee Airmen have risen to the cause whenever called upon. So we are so proud to continue to share their legacy. And our mission is to make sure that we preserve that legacy and also to share with our young people that when you are prepared for what life offers you, there's no stopping, there's no come up short. Being prepared is what the Tuskegee Airmen were, and what they did was incredible, and we're so happy that we not only hear the story of the pilots, but for all of those pilots that rose into the air, there were thousands more that were on the ground that were the wind beneath their wings. Those who served this country deserve our applause, and we're so thankful to be a part of it. Thank you for inviting us on behalf of Tuskegee Airmen everywhere. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the Commanding General of the 509th Bomb Wing, Whiteman Air Force Base at Knob Noster. Brigadier General Thomas Boussier is responsible for the combat readiness of the Air Force's only B-2 wing, including development and employment of the B-2's combat capability as part of the Air Force's Global Strike Task Force. He has held a variety of flying, staff, and command assignments, including the Inspector General, Headquarters, Air Force Global Strike Command, Advanced Programs Division, Headquarters, Air Combat Command, and duty as the Deputy Chief of Staff, Multinational Force, Iraq, Camp Victory, Baghdad, Iraq. General Boussier is a command pilot with more than 3,300 hours in the T-38, F-15C, and B-2. He led the F-15C combat missions during Operation Southern Watch and Vigilant Warrior, and B-2 combat missions during Operations Allied Force and Iraqi Freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, General Boussier.
Governor Nixon, General Danner, General DeLuca, distinguished guests, families of our fallen, and deployed warriors on Skype, welcome. And last but not least, the great citizens of this great state of Missouri. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this very special day. It's a day in which we honor those who have served courageously and proudly and served this great nation with distinction in our armed forces, both our veterans and those that currently serve. I can't tell you how honored I am to be before you today, for the most sacred responsibility we have is the service to our country. To be a part of our Air Force for the last 26 years and serve our country with the community and military leaders, warriors and friends in attendance today has been both a humbling and awesome experience. The warmth and generosity of those who live in Missouri is well known, and our young military men and women appreciate you more than you know. For we all share a common sense of purpose, and that is to serve our great nation. To our other distinguished guests, veterans, Patriot Guard riders, Tuskegee Airmen and their families, friends and family, both military and civilian, thank you for joining us today. But I'd like to draw your attention for a moment to those that sit beside you in uniform, for those of you that deployed, for those of you that are currently serving, for they are the strength of our nation. These great warriors follow in the footsteps of many great Americans who have served our nation in the past. In World War II, the Tuskegee Airmen proved their bravery and selflessness. Even more, they proved their love of flying. The Tuskegee Airmen included pilots, navigators, bombardiers, maintenance support staff, instructors, and personnel who kept our planes in the air. Nearly 15,000 supported the part that the Tuskegee Airmen played in victory in World War II. Trained at the Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama, just shy of 1,000 men graduated from pilot training, after which they were assigned to the 332nd Fighter Group in North Africa and Italy. They were credited with over 15,000 combat sorties. The Red Tails destroyed over 112 German fighters in the air and another 150 plus on the ground. Pilots from the 332nd Fighter Group earned 150 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 744 Air Medals, 8 Purple Hearts, and an untold number of Bronze Stars. They truly are great American warriors. Thank you. For today's men and women serving in the armed forces, the greatest thing we can do is be worthy of those who have served before us. And Missouri has a long history of great American warriors. Lieutenant Colonel James Howard, U.S. Army Air Corps, entered service from St. Louis, Missouri. In January of 1944, Colonel Howard was given our nation's highest honor, the Medal of Honor, for his bravery above and beyond the call of duty, where he led a group of P-51 Mustang aircraft providing support for our bomber formation on a long-range mission deep into enemy territory. He single-handedly attacked a formation of enemy aircraft of more than 30 strong. With utter disregard for his own safety, he immediately pressed home the attack for over 30 minutes. And for those of you that know, 30 minutes is a long time when you're fighting the bad guys, during which he destroyed 3 enemy aircraft and probably destroyed and damaged many more. Colonel Howard was the only fighter pilot in the European operations to receive the Medal of Honor. Another great American warrior, Captain James P. Fleming, United States Air Force, born right here in Sedalia, Missouri in March of '43. Captain Fleming was part of the 20th Special Ops Squadron operating in Vietnam, where in November of 1968, he distinguished himself flying a UH-1 helicopter rescuing 6 Green Beret Special Operations warriors who were in danger of being overrun. Captain Fleming's profound bravery and his lack of concern for himself, but those for his fellow warriors, was what pushed him to risk his life and where he went above and beyond the call of duty. For you see, selfless service is the foundation of our armed forces. Selfless service is in the heart of our deployed warriors watching us today. Selfless service is what makes this nation great. This year, we will celebrate the 65th anniversary of your Air Force. And we must never forget those who have served before us. We must never forget our heritage. For it was in 1911 that General Hap Arnold became our first leader of the Army Air Forces, where he was taught to fly by the Wright brothers in a Wright Flyer, a far stretch away from the most advanced weapon system you see at Whiteman today. But it was during General Hap Arnold's leadership that he led the innovative aspects of our Air Force with the Women Air Force Service Pilots, or the WASP, as well as the Tuskegee Airmen in the implementation of daylight bombing in World War II. For in 1985, General Eisenhower named both General Omar Bradley and General Carl Spaatz as the two American officers that he credited most to the Allied victory in Europe. And thus, on September of '47, this great Air Force was created, and General Carl Spaatz became a first Chief of Staff. Every day, your airmen of your Air Force serve to keep America safe. And it all started at Whiteman 70 years ago this month, when Sedalia Army Airfield was opened in August of '42 as one of 8 glider training bases. It was then renamed Whiteman Air Force Base in December of '55 in honor of Second Lieutenant George A. Whiteman from Sedalia. The history goes on with the 351st Missile Wing activating in '61 to December of '93, when the Spirit of Missouri, the first B-2 aircraft, was delivered to Whiteman Air Force Base. I'm a little bit biased, but that is the most advanced, most respected, and most feared weapon system on the planet. The Spirit of Missouri arrived in color at Whiteman Air Force Base and stepped into the next phase of our Air Force history, to honor those who had served before, to honor the Tuskegee Airmen and those like. The B-2 has participated in every operation: Operation Allied Force in '99, Operation Enduring Freedom in 2001, Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003, and just recently, Operation Odyssey Dawn last year. But Whiteman's not only home of the 509th Bomb Wing, it is a total force base. We're also home to the 442nd Fighter Wing, Air Force Reserve A-10 fighter unit. The Missouri Air National Guard 131st Bomb Wing partnered with the B-2 program. The Missouri Army National Guard 1st Battalion 131st Aviation Unit, as well as the U.S. Navy Reserve Maritime Expeditionary Security Division 1-3, and recently the 20th Reconnaissance Squadron. We all call Missouri and Whiteman home. Whiteman Air Force Base and its servicemen and women enjoy a close relationship with the partner communities of Central Missouri. Your support is absolutely vital to our airmen and our mission success. But our greatest challenge is to honor those who have served before us. Our greatest challenge is to carry on, for our mission is the profession of arms. Your Air Force will fly, fight, and win. Your Air Force is here to serve you, and your Air Force appreciates everything you do every day. It's an honor and privilege to once again be back in Missouri and to serve with you and the great warriors in this great state of Missouri. God bless you, our Air Force, and this great nation. Thank you.
Thank you, General. In a moment, we're going to honor a former member of the United States Marine Corps, but first I want to acknowledge one of the original Tuskegee Airmen, Mr. James Shipley. Sir, please stand to be recognized. Shifting branches of service now, we'd like to take a moment to recognize the outstanding service of the Montford Point Marines, the first African Americans to enter the U.S. Marine Corps. They were recognized this past June with the Congressional Gold Medal. Today, we have in attendance with us Lawrence Diggs from Columbia, Missouri. He was in the Marine Corps from 1943 to 1946. Please join me in recognizing Lawrence Diggs for his great service to our country. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Commandant of the U.S. Army Engineer School from Fort Leonard Wood, Brigadier General Peter DeLuca. General DeLuca has served from platoon level through combatant command in Army, joint, multinational, and interagency environments. He has commanded from company through division level, including command of a battalion and a brigade in combat. He has run multi-billion-dollar annual construction programs in Iraq and in regions including the Northeast United States, Europe, and Africa, supporting foreign militaries, the U.S. Army and the U.S. Air Force, as well as the family of DoD and several other federal agencies and municipalities and states and the Northeast U.S. A life of Army service has allowed General DeLuca to work professionally in 27 U.S. states and 23 countries, including 3 years in formally declared combat zones. Please welcome General DeLuca.
Thank you very much. Please hang in there. You got to work through us to get to the main event, the governor. I'm a little hoarse because a group of senior leaders from Fort Leonard Wood and I were up late last night, as we often are, talking and chatting about the challenges facing the country and the Army and how we're going to fix those, how to make training better at Fort Leonard Wood for all service components, active guard, reserve, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. And we do train 88,000 Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine students of some sort annually at Fort Leonard Wood, more than any other installation anywhere in America. So bear with me for the next couple minutes. I promise it won't be that long. So Governor Nixon, Major General Danner, Brigadier General Bussier, Dr. Hagler, Patriot Guard members, representatives of the Tuskegee Airmen, deployed soldiers and veterans, distinguished guests, families and friends of the fallen warriors, families that are here today, families and friends of the military and the Missouri State Fair, thank you very much for coming and being here today. I'm representing Major General Mark Yenner, the commanding general of the Maneuver Support Center of Excellence and Fort Leonard Wood. And I'm proud to do it because it's a fantastic place to be a soldier and it's a fantastic place to train. It's so important to our military, Fort Leonard Wood. There are things done there that are done nowhere else in the world in training soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. So that's the contribution that Missouri makes to our joint force military every single day. So today is the day to celebrate more than 110 years of the Missouri State Fair and over 70 years since the organization of the Tuskegee Airmen. And we do have a couple thoughts about the past, then and now. How are you doing, Fort Leonard Wood? Hooah? I just want to say, 110 years ago was just after General Leonard Wood commanded the Rough Riders in a very successful war against the Spanish Empire. Teddy Roosevelt was the most famous veteran of that unit, but General Leonard Wood was the commander when they took San Juan Hill in the Battle of San Juan Hill. Of course, around 70 years ago, Fort Leonard Wood itself was built. It was purchased and built to serve the nation, and it has only grown in the depth, the variety, and the importance of the training that goes on at that fort every year since 1941. And it is essential now to our joint force. And so I want to tell you today that there is nothing to fear in Missouri, at least not with Fort Leonard Wood, from any possible discussions you might hear about base realignment and enclosure plans in the future. Frankly, there are things that cannot be replaced that are at Fort Leonard Wood, and so its future is quite secure. Now, one thing that was still true 110 years ago is I think there was a fight with drought and sun and a lot of extreme sunshine, although I did feel a little rain on the drive up here from Fort Leonard Wood today, for which we're all very grateful. One of the other things we did, though, we had that great successful campaign against Spain 110 years ago. We won a victory freeing Cuba and the Philippines from Spanish domination, but we also found ourselves embroiled in a very long-lasting guerrilla war. That sounds pretty familiar to all of us who've been serving for the last decade, that's for darn sure. And that was true then, it's true today. So the life of a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine is pretty familiar as you look back then and now. We were wrestling with a lot of technological issues at that time. In 1941, fielding new equipment, tanks, armored personnel carriers, tank destroyers, using aviation in new ways, creating the paratroops, my favorite since I spent so many years in the paratroops. And we also were doing it at the turn of the century with the introduction of the Colt 45 pistol to fight some rather extreme warriors, the Moro in the Philippines, dealing with the effects of new weapons that were so destructive and we didn't really understand how to employ them properly. It was machine guns at the turn of the century. Today it's directed energy weapons and other systems that are amazingly effective. We were dealing with the internal combustion engine and the impact to the Army, and we've applied that with incredible acumen over the century so that you saw the fastest and most successful invasion and advance in the history of warfare in 2003 when we conquered Iraq in a period of less than 3 weeks. That has never been done in history before. So there's a lot to compare, a lot that's similar in our situations as we shaped the Army for a new strategic environment, just as they were reshaping the Army 70 years ago when the Tuskegee Airmen were part of that reshaping of the Army and the Army Air Forces. But I want to tell you that we have the best equipped, best trained, and best led Army in the history of this nation and frankly in the history of this planet. It's because of the 1.1 million professional soldiers, the ones from here in Missouri, who volunteer to serve in the regular Army, the Army Reserve, and the National Guard. They carry the same patriotism, devotion to duty, and honor that soldiers then carried and they carry now. Of the 1.1 million soldiers, more than 19,000 at any one time are located at Fort Leonard Wood, and Fort Leonard Wood has a daily population of 34,000 of people who are training soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, being trained, or receiving some sort of services that help the military and their families function. We have 278,000 civilian employees in the Army around the world. 3,800 of them are dedicated civil servants right at Fort Leonard Wood. They demonstrate competence, character, and resolute commitment to our nation's missions, their strategic tasks, and they are professionals that have entered into a sacred trust with you. And I want to tell you, it's citizens like these and like you that we depend on, all the professionals in our military, and we have a relationship with you that goes beyond fighting for you abroad, protecting the homeland, but also in responding to disasters and emergencies at home, something I had a bit of experience in with my last job. It's tremendous to do that, emergency response, and we do it every day somewhere in the U.S. When I left my last position, I had employees from the Army Corps of Engineers in 18 different states, to include in Joplin, Missouri, recovering from disasters or emergencies of some sort. Your Army is a part of your society and a part of your community every single day, and I want you to feel that. Our Army families have played a tremendous role since 2001 as well. We have 1.4 million Army families, of which 12,000 are Fort Leonard Wood. They've shouldered a tremendous burden for 10 years. 1.1% of the population fighting back and forth year after year for over a decade in the longest wars in America's history since the Revolution, longer than Revolution. So there's a lot that's been going on, and I want to tell you that there is a little bit of a concern at the senior leaders levels of the Army and in Washington, D.C., that maybe this professional military, this professional Army, is somehow disconnected from the larger American society, that somehow there's a gap between them because so many have been churning in this decade of war, and for a lot of Americans, it's sort of been a set of bad headlines on the news and nothing more to them in the impact on their lives. But I want to tell you, I can't speak for anywhere else, but certainly for Missouri, that concern is unwarranted, and there is no gap between your Army America's Army, and the citizens of this state. The support and the enthusiasm, the extra effort and volunteerism of communities, members of the communities that do things to support our soldiers and families every single day is phenomenal. I've been in the Army over 29 years, and the support that we receive here in Missouri is like no other place that I've ever served. And that is a good place to stop and take some applause. So there are some things, we've closed our posts down and we've protected them with a lot of security since 9/11, and we're really taking a look at what we might do to reopen those to a certain extent, because we want you, the citizens of Missouri, the citizens of the U.S., to have a relationship with your Army. You do. Your neighbors are in it, and you should be able to come and go and see what's going on your Army bases, and really it's a joint base, as I described earlier. And so we have some things that Congress has told us to do that we got to do, but we also are looking at what leeway we might have to sort of reopen and reinvigorate the relationship from our end. We've sort of walled ourselves off for all the right reasons, but it's time to look at it. And when I say that they're your neighbors, I want to highlight a few of your neighbors just now. The Army's made up of people like Private First Class Matthew England from Gainesville, Missouri, Staff Sergeant Jeremy Katzenberger from Weatherby Lake, Staff Sergeant Edward Dixon from the Whiteman Air Force Base area near Knob Noster, First Sergeant Billy Sirks of Velda Village, Specialist Jeffrey White from Catawissa, Staff Sergeant Tyler Smith from Licking, Private First Class Richard McNulty from Rolla, and of course Specialist Sterling Wyatt from Columbia. Matthew, Jeremy, Edward, Billy, Jeffrey, Tyler, Richard, and Sterling are your neighbors. Their families are your neighbors. They're part of your Army. They raised their right hands and joined the Army at a time when they knew there was no question that they would fight in combat. It wasn't if, maybe, could be. They knew they would do it, and they served anyway. They volunteered to go into harm's way, and I tell you, we owe them a tremendous debt of gratitude, and their families as well. Some of their families, I think, are here tonight, and I want to express my appreciation for the tremendous sacrifice that your soldiers, warriors, have made and you have made, because all of those soldiers that I mentioned to you fell this year in our two wars, and we owe them a great debt. So you see, I own everything that's wrong about the engineer school and regiment, and we're working on those things. We own what's right about it, and we're trying to make those things better. And the profession of being an Army officer is really everything I have done since I've been an adult. I've been in the Army 29 years. This has been my life, but this is not my Army. This is your Army. And I want you to know that this country, as it looks at its new strategic mission, is debating the role of the military. But I will say you need your Army today just as much as you needed it in 1941, just as much as you needed it in 1901, just as much as we needed it in 1775, a year before this country was officially born. This country was born in 1776, and it only exists because there was an American Army. There was an American Army before there was an America. And that is going to be true. That relationship continues forever. And that your relationship with it needs to be deep, close, intense, just in the way that it is in the Fort Leonard Wood region that we experience with the tremendously supportive communities there. So the last thing I want to say is that we appreciate that support. I travel so much in this job because the engineer regiment is spread around the world, and I can't pass through an airport or a train station or even a public event without people coming up and touching me and saying thank you for the service that our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marine provide every day. And I accept that thanks on their behalf. I do it because I love it, and I can't imagine doing anything else, although I guess I'll have to figure something out soon. But they are tremendous young Americans. We talk about the greatest generation that fought in World War II, and they were tremendous. My father was one of them. He was in the Navy in World War II. But I know that we have a kernel of, in America, what is the next greatest generation. And I see them every day. I work with them. I've worked with them for 29 years. Amazing volunteers that are your neighbors, and their families are your neighbors. So keep up the great support. So as you leave here today, I hope you'll remember to appreciate your Army, past and present, then and now, the millions of soldiers, civilians, families that have served and are serving now with courage. Whether you know them by name or not, they're making a difference in your lives. They're making a difference in the lives of your communities in Missouri, in our nation, and definitely making a difference in the world. Thanks again for giving me the time today and allowing me to be with you. Essay ons.
Thank you, General. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the Adjutant General of the state of Missouri, Major General Steve Danner. General Danner is the Adjutant General of the Missouri National Guard, serving as the commander of more than 11,500 citizen soldiers and airmen across the state of Missouri. Major General Danner has served for more than 30 years in the U.S. military in a variety of assignments, including Deputy Chief of Staff, Commander of the 140th Regiment, Regional Training Institute, Missouri, and State Judge Advocate General. He deployed in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom with the 35th Area Support Group from May 2005 to January 2007. Major General Danner was appointed as the Adjutant General by Governor Jay Nixon in January 2009. Please give a warm welcome to Major General Steve Danner.
Governor Nixon, our Commander-in-Chief, fellow flag officers, General DeLuca and General Bouchier, glad to have you here today. Dr. Hagler and Friends of Agriculture, and being one of those former farm boys that joined in FFA, I've got to give a shout out to the FFA members over here, HUA. That's our future right there in the FFA. To all the, again, the Friends of Agriculture and citizens here, and to our fellow veterans, including the Tuskegee Airmen, our Marine heroes, the great work that is done by the Patriot Guard. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't imagine the kind of service that they render to soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard every day, families, and especially honoring our fallen in the state of Missouri. Thank you, Patriot Riders. God bless you. And I would be remiss if I did not recognize the fact that the sun never sets on the Missouri Army and Air National Guard. We have airmen and guardsmen serving around this world, and we have several of them in Kuwait and Iraq with us by VTC today, and I want to give a special shout out to them. God bless you for what you're doing. But what another great event we have here, the opportunity to come together to recognize the patriotism and the selfless service of all the men and women and their families who protect and defend the state of Missouri and the United States of America. Through the centuries, the profession of arms has remained a noble and challenging vocation. It's an honor to be here today to pay tribute to the best military in the history of the world. Thank you, Governor Nixon, for the chance to participate again this year. Your appreciation for and your personal dedication to those who serve is evident, and we thank you for that. The National Guard is the oldest component of the United States military. Dating back to 1636, more than 100 years before we were even a nation. And we're the only military component that is mandated by the United States Constitution. Officially, the Missouri Guard began its life in 1808. But in Missouri, we can trace our colonial history back to 1750, when French and Spanish settlers first organized its citizen soldiers to protect the residents of St. Louis and St. Genevieve. The National Guard is unique in many ways. First and foremost, we have a dual mission. When called by the President of the United States, we deploy to faraway places to defend America and preserve liberty and justice. We also serve the governor of the state of Missouri, protecting our homeland. The United States military is the best military in the world. We've demonstrated that for decades. Fighting wars and winning them is what our military does better than any on earth. But a big challenge for the Guard is also to help win the peace. Take Afghanistan, for example. The combination of decades of war, harsh climate and terrain, and the tyrannical rule of the Taliban made it one of the roughest places in the world. Although we are different in many ways, the Afghan people want the same thing Missourians want: food, water, shelter, safety, security at home, opportunity for education for their children. In 2008, to help address agricultural needs of the Afghan people, the Missouri National Guard developed and implemented a cutting-edge pilot program, the Agribusiness Development Team, or ADT. Afghanistan is an agrarian society. More than 70% of Afghans are farmers. A productive and efficient agribusiness community is crucial to their economy and their success as a nation. From the beginning, we tapped into Missouri's agricultural expertise by partnering with Missouri Farm Bureau, Lincoln University, the University of Missouri-Columbia, the Missouri Department of Conservation, the United States Department of Agriculture, and the Missouri Department of Agriculture, Dr. Hagler. And the concept was supported from the beginning by Missouri leaders at all levels, including, most importantly, Governor Nixon, United States Senator Kit Bond, and U.S. Congressman Ike Skelton. To date, we have deployed 6 ADT teams to Nangarhar province in eastern Afghanistan to teach and mentor our Afghan counterparts. These teams have included Guard soldiers and airmen with experience and education in a variety of agriculture-related fields. We have capitalized the citizen-acquired skills of our ag team. Our troops are not only soldiers and airmen, they are professionals, experts and specialists in agronomy, pest management, agricultural marketing, hydrology, animal husbandry, and soil science. Our 7th ADT team is on the ground now and continues that great work of the previous teams. Missouri leads the nation in many ways. Our agriculture development team is a perfect example. It was Missouri's pilot program that was embraced by many levels of leadership in Washington, and at least 10 other states have followed Missouri's lead by implementing their own ADT teams. The objective of our ADTs has been to partner with agriculture community in Afghanistan to share our best agricultural practices. We want to help the Afghans rebuild their infrastructure to help sustain their agricultural future. And, ladies and gentlemen, the Missouri Air and Army National Guard have done just that. Our accomplishments have been many. Since 2008, Missouri ADT teams have mentored and trained teachers at Nangarhar's University Departments of Agriculture and Veterinary Sciences, introduced new sustainable agriculture crop alternatives to current subsistence farming methods, introduced the use of solar and micro-hydroelectric power to provide electricity to value-added processing, including wheat milling and irrigation systems, provided lab equipment and expertise to their regional veterinary and research lab and clinic, improved breeding and husbandry practices to increase herd quality and quantity, health, and improve production, and helped construct an essential sanitary livestock slaughtering facility. As the Adjutant General, I could not be more proud of what our teams have done and continue to do. And they've done it as a joint team. Missouri's team is the only one that also features both Air and Army. They've done a great job and been a perfect example of what the National Guard brings to the United States of America. Not only patriotism and self-service, but the depth of knowledge, professional skills, and the unique problem-solving ability of citizen soldiers. Yeah. Thank you, yes. Governor Nixon, as our Commander-in-Chief, again, we thank you for your steadfast support of the Missouri National Guard citizen soldiers. God bless this great state, and God bless the United States of America. Hooah!
Thank you, General. At this time, we ask for representatives from Missouri's agribusiness development teams to please come forward to receive the Governor's unit citation. The Governor's unit citation is awarded to units, teams, or task forces who, by their outstanding performance, have reflected great credit on the state of Missouri and the Missouri National Guard for service since September 11th, 2011. Receiving the awards for the advance party for the 1st Agribusiness Development Team, Sergeant Major Jim Schulte. From ADT 1, Colonel Greg Allison and Sergeant Major Larry Godsey. From ADT 2, Colonel Dave Boyle and Sergeant Major Matthew Mullins. From ADT 3, Lieutenant Colonel Chris Jackson and Master Sergeant Anthony Couples. From ADT 4, Captain Jeremy Berenson and Sergeant First Class Danny Thompson. From ADT 5, Colonel Brent Beckley. And representing ADT 6, Master Sergeant Joe Schicker. Currently, we have 46 members from ADT 6 who remain in Afghanistan. You've seen them, at least 2 of them on the video screen. The commander, Lieutenant Colonel Andre Edison, and Sergeant Major Mike Letterly are joining us by VTC. Gentlemen, thank you for your service. Please return to your seats. We are honored to be joined here today by the Governor of Missouri, Jay Nixon. Governor Nixon has given his unfailing support to Missouri's military veterans and to those currently serving in our armed forces. This summer, he signed into law a bill that strengthens and expands Show Me Heroes, a program which Governor Nixon established in 2010 to increase employment opportunities for Missouri military veterans and spouses. The governor also recently signed legislation that creates a dedicated funding source for Missouri's 7 veterans' homes. Those are among several challenges in the last 4 years that are making Missouri a more attractive place for veterans to work and retire. When Missouri National Guard units have been deployed for tours overseas, Governor Nixon has been there whenever possible, just as he has been there to help welcome them home when they return. He has twice traveled to Iraq and Afghanistan to meet with soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines from Missouri and visit with the wounded in military hospitals. Governor Nixon is proud of being a native Missourian and proud to support Missourians who are serving or have served honorably in our nation's military. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Missouri's 55th Governor, Jay Nixon.
Thank you. You know,
I don't know what to tell my folks back home in DeSoto, Missouri when a Tuskegee Airman stands up and salutes you guys. God bless you for your service. Thank you, Major Roberts. It's a privilege to be here this afternoon to again recognize the men and women who have proudly and honorably served in our nation's armed forces. Ladies and gentlemen of our military, both past and present, I salute you on behalf of 6 million Missourians for your service. I'm especially pleased to honor members of the Tuskegee Airmen. 70 years ago, they stepped forward to serve their country and help defeat the Nazis over the skies of Europe. Thank you for your leadership and service. Their courage and skill in combat and their resolve that helped overcome the obstacles of bigotry they often faced have made this group stuff of legend. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service to our country. We honor you as well as your fellow airmen who have passed on. I also want to thank our friends of the Patriot Guard for their unbroken and unwavering support of our military members and families. They have been faithful in giving honor and respect to our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, especially those that make the ultimate sacrifice. It is especially helpful to have that force on our side when there are folks out there that want to use the most sacred moment of a democracy, honoring those who have fallen, to make statements about other things. And I thank you for putting your machines, your bodies, and your soul between those who are unpatriotic at that important time. We may have to allow them to be nearby, but with your motorcycles around, we certainly don't have to listen to anything they say. Thank you for making sure that we always remember and honor those who wear the uniform. Now, Military Appreciation Day at our great Missouri State Fair gives us the chance, in some small measure, to recognize the men and women of Missouri who have stepped forward to serve their country, both in times of peace and conflict. Over the past 200 years, Missourians have answered the call of duty, and many have distinguished themselves through heroism and leadership. Leaders such as General of the Armies, General John Blackjack Pershing, or the GI's General and the first Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Omar Bradley, or the Commander of the 82nd Airborne Division during World War II, General Maxwell Taylor. And of course, there was a captain of the artillery from Independence who served on the front lines of World War I while in the Missouri National Guard, a man we all proudly know as the 33rd President of the United States, Harry S. Truman. But behind the generals and the admirals whose names are well known have been the millions who have served just as honorably, just as bravely, and often sacrificing their own lives on our behalf. Beyond their families and friends and hometown, their names and faces may not have been known, but they certainly are no less deserving, not only of our eternal thanks and respect, but also for our continued eternal help to their families. When our military veterans come home today, they're like the veterans of times past in many ways, like those who came back from service in 1945, or 1953, or 1970. Our veterans returning from military service today are coming back to their communities to work, or to go to college, or to raise a family. Like the generations before, they will become our leaders in government, in the military, in business, in education, in agriculture, and so many other fields. And like those Missourians who served before them, the veterans of today will be the solid citizens that form the bedrock of our communities. The small business owner, the volunteer youth coach, the FFA leader, the church congregation president, the mentor to the next generation. They will continue to have our support, especially in job training and employment opportunities through programs such as Show Me Heroes. Show Me Heroes has enlisted the help of more than 2,100 Missouri employers and has helped more than 1,600 Missouri veterans in the last 2 years alone find jobs to be permanently living here in our great state. It is also very fitting that at this place, at this time, the first units of the Missouri National Guard to be recognized and to formally receive the Governor's Unit Citation are the agribusiness development teams that have served in Afghanistan. Missouri led the way for our nation's military with the first agribusiness development team in 2007. Other states have seen the success that Missouri has in helping farmers and villagers do what they do, win not only the war, but win the peace. The citizen soldiers and airmen of each of the ADTs of the Missouri National Guard have shared their skills and knowledge of self-sufficiency with the people of that country. At the same time, they showed their courage and training as soldiers in a region that required constant vigil against danger. That was demonstrated again just a few months ago when the members of ADT 6 fought off a fierce enemy attack at their base. Could not have been prouder of our folks who were attacked at the time of that shift change by suicide bombers who not only defended their base, but made sure we took some of those folks from the other side who were attacking the United States of America. 3 years ago, I had the privilege of being with the members of ADT-2 at Forward Operating Base Finley Shields in Afghanistan. It was apparent to me that their work and that of each of those teams was a vital part of our military mission. And when anyone visits our office in the Capitol, the Missouri flag we fly there is a flag that was flown at that base that day. All of Missouri can rightfully take pride in their accomplishments. We thank them and all of our fellow Missourians in the National Guard for their service. So, courageous Missourians, including those gathered here today from several generations, have gone into harm's way when their country asks, without hesitation or complaint. To our veterans and our active military, from World War II through Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan, thank you for all you have done on our behalf, a debt we cannot repay. I ask that all of us continue to keep in our prayers those who are currently serving in our military, as well as their families, until they come home to us safely. Thank you, and may God bless the great state of Missouri, and especially bless those who safeguard our liberty. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Governor Nixon. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'd like to recognize all the veterans in the audience that served in wartime. If you are a veteran, I should say, of World War II, please stand. If you are a veteran of the Korean War, please stand. Vietnam War veterans, please stand. If you're a veteran of Grenada, please stand. Any veterans from Panama, please stand. If you're a veteran from the Persian Gulf War, please stand. Veterans of the war in Afghanistan, please stand. And if you're a veteran of the war in Iraq, please stand. We thank all of you for your service. Today we are privileged to have the family members of servicemen and women who courageously served and gave the ultimate sacrifice while defending our great country in war against terrorism. At this time, I'd like to ask all the family members from Remembering Our Fallen who have joined us here today to please rise. And now, please direct your attention to the video screens as we honor and pay tribute to these Missouri warriors of the 21st century who have given their lives in service since September 11th, 2001.
Corporal Benjamin J.T. Ashley. Corporal Michael C. Bailey. Corporal Riley E. Baker. Specialist Jonathan P. Barnes. Specialist Jacob D. Barton. Sergeant Michael J. Beckerman. Corporal Ricky L. Bell. Specialist Joel L. Bertoldi. Chief Warrant Officer 2, Michael T. Blaze. Staff Sergeant Ronald C. Bilestone. First Lieutenant Amos C.R. Bach. Private First Class Brian J. Bradbury. Private First Class Lucas M. Bragg. Staff Sergeant Paul F. Brooks. Major Sid W. Brookshire. Sergeant Travis L. Burkhart. Specialist Michael C. Campbell. Sergeant Ryan M. Campbell. Specialist Justin B. Carter. Corporal Jacob R. Carver. Specialist Robert K. Charlton. Lance Corporal Matthew W. Clark. Sergeant Christopher M. Cooper. Specialist James F. Costello III. Specialist Richard M. Crane. Sergeant Robert W. Crow, Jr. Master Sergeant Thomas A. Crowell. Specialist Justin E. Colbreth. Sergeant Robert G. Davis. Specialist Todd E. Davis. Staff Sergeant Michael L. Deason. Lance Corporal Leon B. Durbaps. Specialist Kevin R. Dixon. Sergeant Edward F. Dixon III. Sergeant Gary D. Dirk. First Lieutenant William A. Edens. Private First Class Matthew J. England. Private First Class Colby N. Vernon. Specialist Jason D. Fingar. Specialist James F. M. Finley. Sergeant Zachary M. Fisher. Specialist Stephen J. Fitzmaurice. Corporal Jacob R. Flesher. Sergeant Edward W. Forrest, Jr. Sergeant Michael T. Fuga. Private Alva L. Gaylord. First Lieutenant Mark C. Jelena. Sergeant Milton A. Gist, Jr. Private First Class Jesse A. Givens. Sergeant First Class Richard S. Gottfried. Private First Class Andrew J. Habseger. Specialist Blake W. Hall. Corporal Nathan T. Hammond. Lance Corporal Nicholas J. Hand. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Michael L. Hartwick, Jr. Major William F. Hecker III. Lance Corporal Eric R. Helt. Sergeant Nicholas M. Hudson. Staff Sergeant Jamie L. Huggins. Staff Sergeant James R. I. V. Sergeant Isaac B. Jackson. Sergeant Lindsay T. James. Captain Christopher B. Johnson. Private First Class Lavenna L. Johnson. Specialist Christopher M. Katzenberger. Staff Sergeant Jeremy A. Katzenberger. Chief Warrant Officer 2, Matthew G. Kelly. Corporal Dallas L. Kearns. Tech Sergeant William J. Kerwood. Staff Sergeant Daniel L. Kisling, Jr. Sergeant Dennis D. Kisseloff. Sergeant Adam J. Colahas. Sergeant First Class Randall A. Lamberson. Sergeant Brandon E. Maggart. Specialist Russell M. McCoskey. Private First Class Christopher L. Merlone. Corporal Donald M. Marler. Major Michael R. Martinez. Chief Petty Officer Matthew D. Mason. Private Anthony M. Mazzarella. Private First Class Richard L. McNulty III. Specialist Kenneth A. Melton. Specialist Bradley L. Melton. Staff Sergeant Sean M. Miltler. Sergeant Melvin Y. Mora. Staff Sergeant James D. Morris. Specialist Joshua J. Munger. Specialist Matthew M. Murchison. Specialist Edward L. Myers. Specialist Peter J. Navarro. Specialist Joshua M. Nuche. Lance Corporal Rex A. Page. Staff Sergeant Lawrence L. Parrish. Lance Corporal Matthew P. Pathenos. Captain Travis L. Patriquin. Private First Class Michael R. Patton. Sergeant First Class Robert W. Ferris. Sergeant Amanda N. Pinson. Specialist Jesse G. Pollard. Sergeant Austin D. Pratt. Specialist Sean P. Rankinen. Specialist Dylan T. Reed. Chief Warrant Officer 2, Ricky L. Richardson, Jr. First Lieutenant Daniel P. Riordan. Sergeant First Class Charles M. Saddle. Staff Sergeant Charles R. Sanders, Jr. Sergeant First Class Ronald W. Sawyer. Lance Corporal Patrick W. Shamel. First Lieutenant Roslyn L. Schulte. Colonel Stephen K. Scott. Lance Corporal Darren T. Settle. Sergeant First Class Daniel R. Sexton. Private First Class Jeremy R. Shank. Staff Sergeant Russell K. Shoemaker. First Sergeant Billy J. Searks. Staff Sergeant Bradley J. Skelton. Captain Benedict J. Smith. Private First Class Jeremy D. Smith. Sergeant Tyler Smith. SO2 Adam O. Smith.
Staff Sergeant Trevor L. Spink, Jr.
Specialist Christopher G. Stark.
Sergeant Matthew F.C. Strotter.
Chief Petty Officer Sean Patrick Sullivan.
Corporal James E. Summers III.
Sergeant Timothy J. Sutton.
Sergeant Philip J. Spitak.
Specialist Robert D. Varga.
Lance Corporal Philip D. Vinage.
Sergeant Brandon K. Wallace.
Master Sergeant Thomas A. Walsmith.
Hospital Corpsman 2nd Class Christopher G. Walsh.
Sergeant Donald R. Walters.
Staff Sergeant Shannon V. Weaver.
Lance Corporal Drew W. Weaver.
Sergeant 1st Class Gerald A. Weisenhunt.
Hospital Corpsman 2nd Class Jared P. White.
Specialist Jeffrey L. White, Jr.
Sergeant Charles T. Wilkerson.
Private 1st Class Matthew W. Wilson.
Private Vincent C. Winston, Jr.
Sergeant 1st Class William P. Woods, Jr.
Specialist Wyatt Sterling.
Corporal Gunnar W. Zwelling.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Please take a moment today to visit the Remember Our Fallen memorial located in the Agriculture Building. We'd like to thank the Missouri State Fair, the Missouri Department of Agriculture, Agri-Missouri, Iland Internet Services, Missouri Farmers Care, Advanced Military Equipment, ADM, Missouri Biodiesel, Midwest Dairy, the Missouri Cattlemen, and the Missouri Beef Industry Council for their support of our armed forces. Without your support, this day would not have been possible. Thank you for attending. Have a great day.